It's been over a year since my original tips and tricks on all the power-ups in Super Mario Maker 2 video released. Since then, 6 brand new power-ups released for the game and DLC updates, those being the Master Sword, SMB2 Mushroom, Frog Suit, P-Balloon, Super Acorn, and the Boomerang Flower. Some of these power-ups are really good, some are average, and one is garbage in my opinion, but today I wanted to talk about each of them since I haven't really been able to cover them before. What we'll do is go through each of the power-ups abilities, then jump into a few scenarios on how they could be used, and also how to not use them in some cases. The reason I wanted to go over their abilities first is because that will make it easier for you all to come up with your own ideas as well. Since these were added in updates, I thought it would also be fun to talk about if I thought these power-ups were a good addition or not, and if there were any different power-ups I would have liked to see instead. Before we start, if you enjoyed this video, please make sure to leave a like and subscribe to the channel, but with all that said, let's jump right into some tips, tricks, and ideas for all the DLC power-ups in Super Mario Maker 2. First, we get to start off with the most complex power-up of this video, the Master Sword. All of the power-ups in this video are unfortunately exclusive to a game style, and that's no different for the Master Sword here, which is exclusive to the Super Mario Bros. Style. This will turn Mario into Link and will give him 4 of Link's tools, which can be used in many different ways. First, of course, is the Master Sword itself. There are 3 main ways to use this weapon. The first is a basic slash in front of you, activated by simply pressing the run button, which can be done in the air or on the floor. This allows Mario to kill or damage enemies in his path and also activate a few items like POWs, on-off switches, question mark blocks, and so on. This sword slash will kill Goombas, Spike Tops, Bloopers, Cheep Cheeps, Piranha Plants, Monty Moles, Rocky Wrenches, Hammer Bros, Chain Chomps, Spikes, Wigglers, Dry Bones for Smash, Fish Bones, Magic Koopas, Pokies, Lakitus, Bonsai Bills, Cannonballs, and Bullet Bills. For shell enemies like Koopas, Buzzy Beetles, and Spinies, it will only put them into their shell form. It will also only stun Mecha Koopas and activate bombs. The sword damages the bosses as well, however it will take multiple hits for each boss to be defeated by the sword. This could also be used to collect things that are just out of reach for Mario. The next sword attack is the dash attack, activated by holding run while pointing the control stick down while on the ground. This leaves the sword out in front of you as you run forward, which can constantly damage enemies until you come to a stop by either running into something or letting go of run. Once it's activated, you are able to jump with it, however you can't turn around without starting a new dash. This also allows you to kill the exact same enemies as before, however it'll also let you fully defeat Koopas, Buzzy Beetles, Spinies, Bob-ombs, and Mecha Koopas this time around. It will still take multiple hits for the bosses, and it will also activate things like a normal sword slash would. The final sword attack is the down thrust, activated the same way a ground pound is by pressing down in the air. The uses here are pretty much exactly the same as the dash attack, as it damages the exact same things and activates the exact same things with pretty much no differences. This does mean that unlike a ground pound, this will not destroy bricks when coming in contact with them. The only real unique thing to cover here is that this will also allow you to destroy chain chomp posts and bounce off of spike balls like this, since normally swiping at spike balls will make you bounce away from them. Well, I was going to cover the rest of Link's tools before jumping into any ideas, but I thought we might as well go ahead and cover my first idea using the sword before jumping into the other tools, since this section has already been really long, so let's take a look at that. Mario is now entered into a room with his only exit being blocked off by dotted line blocks. There seems to be nowhere for Mario to go, since the only other thing in this room are these spike balls. Luckily, with the abilities of the Master Sword, he's able to down thrust onto these spike balls in order to move around the room. It's pretty difficult, but with enough patience, Mario is able to reach the top platform, hit the on-off switches, and finally leave this room. There's nothing too special in here. Since tracks and claws keep the spike balls still or in a set path, we use those in order to create these platforms. The room I made is pretty basic and easy, however you can make the jumps more difficult, or maybe even force Mario to jump on a spike ball for a set amount of time until a timer runs out. This was originally inspired by the Ninja level, The Speedventure of Link, where the fastest path requires you to jump off of a spike ball. Just like in that level, maybe you could hide secrets where you need to jump off of a spike ball in order to get it. There are a lot of other applications for the Master Sword, but I decided to go with the down thrust for this idea because I found jumping off of the spike balls to be pretty fun. Alright, now that we've covered his sword, let's go right to his other moves. I was not kidding when I said the Master Sword was the most complex power-up here. Let's start with the Hylian Shield. By holding down, Link will pull up his shield in order to block or reflect certain things. This will only work from whatever side Mario is facing, so if he is attacked from behind while shielding, he'll still be hurt. Mario will also be knocked a bit backwards whenever he blocks something. When blocking something that's just walking towards him, he'll turn them around. Similarly, if you block something like shells or spike balls when they're sent towards him, they'll be sent the opposite direction, with spike balls that were once floating now being affected by gravity. Elemental attacks like Bowser's Fire will be destroyed upon coming in contact with the shield. There's no real point of going over everything he can block since, well, it's pretty much everything. The only things he really can't block are the Angry Sun, Boos, Fire Bars, Burners, and Skewers. This does mean that he can actually move enemies that normally stand completely still using his shield, like Thwomps, Piranha Plants, and Munchers. This could be helpful for maybe moving them into certain spots in order to move past them or activate something. That's it for the shield, so let's move on to the bow and arrow. Using the triggers, Mario is able to aim the bow and shoot in 3 different angles. Once activated, Mario is not able to turn around until he fires. The arrows are pretty interesting as to what they interact with, so let's go over those. Obviously, they're able to kill or damage enemies. It will completely defeat Goombas, Koopas, Spinies, Bloopers, Cheep Cheeps, Piranha Plants, Monty Moles, Rocky Wrenches, Hammer Bros, Spikes, Magic Koopas, Pokies, and Lakitu. The arrow will also activate bombs and damage bosses. The arrows have no effect on the other enemies though, and strangely enough, Wigglers are affected by arrows, however they only get angry from them and can't be killed. Arrows are also able to collect items like coins and keys without the player needing to touch them. The final thing arrows can do is activate a select few items, which are on-off switches, P-switches, and POWs. Yeah, they don't activate question mark blocks or bricks, which is kind of weird, but at least it's helpful for the other 3 items I mentioned. The final move is the bomb, which is done by pressing up and run while on the ground. It works exactly like a bomb, and Mario can even throw it as well with the run button, though he isn't able to pick it back up again once thrown. When done in a clown car, it will drop a bomb directly below itself, and during the nighttime of the ground theme, Link's bombs will actually be able to walk until they hit a wall. Well, now that we've finally covered all of Link's moves, let's go over my other 3 ideas for this power-up, which is one for each tool. Mario has exited a pipe into a cramped space with his exit once again being blocked by dotted line blocks. There's nowhere for him to go, so his best bet is to just survive. Unfortunately for him, this won't be easy since there are lava bubbles flying at him from both sides. He can't kill them with his sword, so he has to just keep bouncing them away with his shield. The fireballs keep closing in on him on both sides, so he has to make quick turns in order to fend both of them off. After a bit of time though, an on-off switch is activated, finally allowing Mario to leave. This little shield room has a decent amount within it, so let's go over it all. First off is the small area Mario is trapped in. We have a one-way wall on top of him so that he can't exit or jump over the lava bubbles, which could defeat the purpose of using the shield. On each side of him are bumpers. These are used because they allow enemies to go through them, but not Mario himself. If we used one-ways, then the lava bubbles might have gotten trapped in the room with Mario, and if we used grinders, then Mario might have gotten knocked into it by the recoil of blocking, so bumpers were definitely the best option here. Speaking of the lava bubbles, I have a 1-block thick chamber for them to bounce in before reaching Mario. Inside of each chamber I have 2 lava bubbles. Make sure they're placed in different spots between the 2 chambers, as it might be impossible if they're symmetrical, as they'd enter Mario's area at the same time. As I said, I decided to use 2 on each side here, however you could also go with 3. It's very difficult, however it is still possible, so if you really want a hard challenge, then you could do that. The final aspect of this room is the classic spike ball timer. A spike ball will shoot from this build blaster, then destroy a brick, and then repeat until eventually it hits this on-off switch. You can make this shorter or longer by adding or removing bricks. I found this length to work best, however you may want it to be harder, so just add in more bricks or even just turn the blaster into a normal speed one instead of the fast variant. This room overall just has a ton of customization, and while it is pretty difficult, I found it very fun to try and beat. It's extra satisfying when you hit that perfect turnaround shield where you hit one right after another, so I definitely suggest using a shield like this. Mario has to think quickly here, as the floor below him will disappear once the P-switch runs out that he just hit. In order to leave this, he has to get the 5 pink coins spread randomly in the room. There's not much time for him to line up each shot, but if he's able to do it accurately and quickly enough, he'll be able to leave the room. There really isn't too much going on here that needs explaining. Mario enters the room on top of a P-switch, which will fill in the blocks below him in order to let him survive for a short period of time. You're going to want to make sure Mario can't leave the way he came in, as that could lead to some cheese where the player collects 1 or 2 of the coins, leaves, then resets the timer. If you want, you can always change the timer to something different instead of a P-switch, like a spike ball one I mentioned earlier. The only issue with that is that it would take up more space on the screen and maybe have less room for Mario to be able to shoot his arrows. Another thing you can customize is what Mario has to do under a time limit here. Maybe he has to shoot at something else, or maybe he has to even try to defeat a boss. Like the last one, there are many different options for this room, so I definitely suggest experimenting with this idea. The final tool is Link's bombs. For this, I decided to make a small speedrun section. Mario is required to pull out a bomb at the very beginning and make it through a small section before he throws the bomb away in order to destroy the wall blocking him. Then he uses his sword in order to clear a path and escape through the pipe. There are a lot of small setups here to get it to work, so let's go over those. At the very start, I have a device that will instantly drop a spring onto Mario. Since items can't be placed inside of the start in Mario Maker 2, the next best thing is to have something land onto a note block to launch down a spring. Then the Master Sword would fly into Mario from a track like this. Now I have a P-switch block as an indicator for when to pull out the bomb. P-switch blocks generally don't interact with anything, so they work great for indicators in all sorts of levels. Then we have a small thing here that allows Mario to do a pretty simple shell jump without needing to grab it. Weird thing though, the Monty Moles seem to be shorter than Buzzy Beetles, which is why you're able to kick through the shell even though you're jumping on top of them. Goombas, for example, aren't shorter than Buzzy Beetles, so they don't work in this setup, so moles are best. The final main thing to talk about this is the saw I have on the track. This ensures that the player doesn't pull out the bomb at the very end. The POW block also makes sure that the player still has the Master Sword by the time they get past the wall. You can of course make this middle section anything you want it to be, but I like how I set it up. Now the hard part about this is showing the player that they need to pull out a bomb at all. The best ways I found to do this is to make sure the blocks they need to destroy are on screen, and inside the ground I also have an indicator for them to press Y and up to get a bomb. It's not perfect, but I think it might do the job. Now I do have one more thing for the bombs, however it's completely unrelated to this idea here. Never make bomb excavation. This is basically where you make a huge wall of destructible blocks and then force the player to place down several bombs in order to destroy them. This is extremely tedious and unfun. We went over this in the first power-up video as well with the builder and catsuit. Now obviously needing to destroy some blocks with bombs are okay, just don't overdo it to the point where it gets tedious and boring. This no long excavation rule goes for any other power-up I mentioned in this video, by the way, so no cloud excavation with the SMB2 Mushroom, and no brick excavation with the boomerangs. Well, after 3.5 pages of the script, we finally finished talking about the Master Sword. I was not kidding when I said this thing was complex. We still have 5 more power-ups to go. Lucky for me though, most of these are significantly less complicated. With how much I talked about the Master Sword, it's pretty obvious that I think it was a great addition, and there really is no other power-up I would have chosen to replace it. Anyways, we've been looking at the Super Mario Bros. Style for quite a while, so let's skip over the Mario Bros. 2 Mushroom for now and go straight for the frog suit. This is exclusive to the Super Mario Bros. 3 game style, and when equipped, it allows Mario to swim much better underwater. However, on land, his movement is horrible as he decides to jump very slowly instead of walking and running. His jumps are a slight bit higher than normal though, and when holding an item he can run on water. Yeah, that's about it. Kind of weird after coming from the Master Sword power-up, but there really is not much to this thing, and okay, I can't do this for any longer. The frog suit is easily my least favorite power-up in Mario Maker 2. I already dislike water levels, and while sure, the frog suit makes them slightly more tolerable, I still find them way less fun than running on the ground. The frog suit though takes away this ability to run on the ground, and overall it's just a huge nuisance. So in the end, it's only okay in 4 of the 20 level themes in Mario 3. Underwater, Underwater Night, Nighttime Castle, and the Daytime Jungle. Like I said though, I just don't like swimming, and that's pretty much all this power-up is good for. All of its uses are just so basic. It helps you swim better and occasionally run on water. So since I dislike this power-up so much, this idea will actually be about avoiding it. Mario is entered into a room and is face down with the frog suit. Normally he wouldn't want to collect it anyway since it's bad by itself, but this time he really doesn't want to collect it as his clear condition is to beat the level of Super Mario, not Frog Mario. With the frog suit's admittedly cool and unique mechanic of jumping around, Mario is able to slide underneath it with the help of some ice. Afterwards he runs into a bridge with the evil frog suits trying to shark him from below. With some very difficult duck jumps though, he's just barely able to get past the bridge. This final room has him come face to face with the final frog suit blocking the goal. With his bravery, Mario is able to run under it as it hops and hit the goal. There really is not all too much to explain here. Just give Mario a mushroom before entering the room, and inside of it have several of these areas for Mario to game end himself if he accidentally collects a frog suit. Make sure there aren't any enemies that can damage Mario in the level as well, because if Mario could just damage himself, he can use it to get rid of the frog suit and become Super Mario instead of Frog Mario. If you want enemies though, then maybe you could change the clear condition to making Mario need to keep a fire flower or tanuki leaf instead. The only other things I want to say about this level is since the bridge loads differently depending on how you play the first part, it can sometimes be harder or easier, so making there only be 3 here works best. For the ending, since frog suits normally jump towards the right, place a block here so it rebounds towards Mario. There's a lot of room to customize how you have to avoid these guys, so I definitely suggest looking into it. Just like that, we're done with the frog suit. Its only other uses are just super basic stuff like being a power-up for water levels. It also can, of course, as I mentioned, run on water if you pick up an item and get full P-speed. Overall though, I'm just really disappointed that this item was what they decided to add in for this style. I very much dislike how this plays, but to add insult to injury, this meant that we didn't get the hammer suit. This power-up is probably my second favorite thing to come from Mario Bros. 3, and it never left that game. This allows you to throw hammers like a hammer bro that could damage things fireballs couldn't, like thwomps or even the angry sun. This is such a neat power-up that I think would have worked great here, but they went with this instead, and honestly, I'm just not a fan in the slightest. I've heard a lot of people praise the frog suit, but in all honesty, I can't see it at all. There's just no contest for me that this is the worst power-up in the game. It's the only one that doesn't work well in most themes. For those of you that like it more than any of the other power-ups, let me know why, because I just can't work well with this at all. Anyways, on to probably the most basic power-up of this video, the P-Balloon. This is exclusive to the Super Mario World style, and it lets you fly in any direction you want to and also boost using literally any of the buttons. If you boost into a wall, you'll come to a complete stop, and if you hit something that can be activated, then you'll do just that. This includes question mark blocks, note blocks, turn blocks, pause, and on-off switches. This is helpful because you're able to hit them from any side and only if you're boosting. You can activate P-switches with this as well, though obviously only from the top, and you can activate them regardless of boosting. Interestingly enough, it's actually impossible to damage enemies while you're in this form. Attempting to do so will actually cause you to take damage instead. This is also the only power-up that doesn't let you use any equipment like the Shell Mitts, Yoshi, and Clown Cars. You also aren't able to pick anything up anymore after using this power-up either. The final really interesting thing about this power-up for me is that with this, you'll never be considered on the floor. So if you have a clear condition where you aren't allowed to land, for example, using the P-balloon, even if you do touch the ground, it actually doesn't count. This means you can do things like activate stuff on the floor, or more importantly to me, go through doors without touching the ground. The doors do still need to be on the floor though in order to enter them, which is kind of lame to me. It would have been really cool if you could enter doors even if they're in the air using this power-up, but it's still an interesting mechanic. This does let you enter sideways pipes without a floor though, which you can't normally do unless underwater, so that's pretty neat. Now with all of this power-up's unique mechanics, it means that it's much more niche than any other power-up, maybe even more so than the frog suit. I don't think this power-up works very well at all in traditional levels unless it was specifically designed for it. Even the frog suit works well in traditional levels in 4 themes. Now the reason I like the P-balloon more though, it's just that it's more unique and it works in every theme. Plus it's also pretty fun to fly around with it. With that being said though, most of the time you'll be using this to make obstacle courses that require the P-balloon to traverse. Since it's pretty niche, I only came up with one good idea, so let's go ahead and jump into it. Mario isn't able to move much due to the P-switch blocks blocking his way. However, to the right he sees that there are some munchers about to activate some P-switches to let him go. He has to make it through this room before the timer runs out though, or else his exit will be blocked. As the gate opens, he makes a tight turn to hit the on-off blocks, then he grabs the key, and finally makes it into the door in the nick of time. There's nothing much that needs to be explained here that isn't already obvious. I do, however, want to make sure that I mention it's important to have anti-soft locks in here. Soft locks are basically situations where you can no longer progress nor die in the level without the time running out. For this level, I place saws here so that there's not only more obstacles to dodge, but also an anti-soft lock to give players an out if they aren't able to make it through in time. The pit below the key also works as an anti-soft lock. One thing that I actually realized could be a soft lock while writing the script is if somebody decides to go into the area with the key door without grabbing the key, they could get stuck. So adding in a spike here would be the best thing to do. Always make sure to replay your levels over and over to look for potential soft locks. I feel this is very important with the P-balloon specifically due to it giving you flight, meaning that inescapable pits may be more common in levels with them. So always put a spike if there's even a slight chance a player could get trapped. Back to the idea though, you could always use a different type of timer if you want to, like a spike wall timer or just a muncher on a track that would activate the P-switch. I personally found the normal P-switch timer to work perfectly here, but it's up to you if you want to use this or a different type. In the end, I think the P-balloon is decent. Definitely the most niche power-up in the game, but levels with it, when well designed, can be pretty fun. Plus, Super Mario World doesn't really have any other power-up that could have been added in, so let's go ahead and move on to the Super Acorn. This is Mario U's second flying power-up after the Propeller Mushroom, however they function pretty differently. Flying Squirrel Mario has 4 main abilities I want to highlight, the first and most simple being the Wall Cling. This allows Mario to stick to walls rather than sliding down them like he normally does. After a few seconds though, he will go into his normal sliding state, however this is good for stalling. The second thing about this power-up is that it makes Mario's spin jump go significantly higher. Normally he can only jump up 3 blocks with the spin, but the Super Acorn more than doubles that, with him now being able to jump about 6.5 blocks from the ground with a spin, about as high as a triple jump. The last 2 abilities are the main ones of the Super Acorn, the glide and the boost done in the air. After a non-spin jump, Mario is able to glide for as long as he wants to, pretty self-explanatory. If he needs to get a slight bit higher in the air though, then you can use the boost with the triggers. You can only do this boost once before landing, and you also aren't able to glide as effectively after using the boost, so it's best saved for if you need just a bit more height at the end of a glide. There are actually a few more ways to get this boost back after using this, so let's go over those. Obviously there's landing on the ground like I said, but you can also spin or jump on an enemy, exit a pipe, exit a clown car, exit a cloud, go into a twister, enter a claw, bounce on a bumper, and finally exit water. This power-up has a lot of unique abilities, but nothing that I would consider overpowered, meaning that it works great in many scenarios. It's great for traditional levels, which is a first for these power-ups, as 2 are more gimmicky, and the frog suit only works for underwater levels. With that being said, let's go ahead and jump right into my ideas for this power-up. First off, I made a small level using most of the Acorn's abilities. Mario isn't able to land on the ground upon leaving, so his best bet is to do what the level tells him and spin jump on these piranha plants. From there he has to do a mid-air boost and cling onto the wall. Then he has to spin on another set of piranhas and boost at just the right time so his mini glide can wrap around here and cling onto this wall. From there, he spins on these piranhas to boost towards the thwomp, which will activate these P-switches. Mario does need to cancel his momentum though with ground pounds and his mini glide. Finally, from there is just another wall cling spin into a boost to the goal. There's nothing really to explain here as it's all pretty obvious what's going on. I just wanted to make a showcase of just how well this power-up works in a parkour-based level. I didn't even really use the main glide. Since there are so many different things this power-up can do though, it's important to have indicators if you want to make a parkour level. I have a Z at the start to tell the player that they'll need to spin jump. Coin trails are also pretty helpful, especially for timing when to do the boost. You can also place unfilled P-switch blocks to show the player where they should be boosting. If you plan on using the wall cling or wall jumps at all, then having the wall be a different block where they should be clinging onto would be best. In this case, I used hard blocks. With all these different moves and ways you can combine them, I think this may be the perfect power-up for parkour-based levels, so just finding fun ways to combine them is a good way to make a level with this. For my second idea here, I have a good way of using these in traditional levels. Now as I said, they already work pretty well just placed in the level, however I think they're extraordinary for placing secrets. First off, if the player manages to keep their mushroom long enough, they can be rewarded with the Super Acorn. This can open up some new ways to get secrets. First off, we have a bridge with a 10 coin above this set of pipes which can be reached if Mario uses the spin gem granted to him by the Super Acorn. Just placing big coins or coins in general slightly out of reach of normal Mario can be a great way to reward those with the Super Acorn. Another good way to hide secrets is with the gliding mechanic. If you have a section where Mario needs to jump between land masses like this, then maybe you could leave a spot open below the land that can only be reached by using the glide. I would have it to where you can clearly see the reward from the top so that players would know that you can glide there, as many won't want to glide to their possible deaths if they don't think that there's anything down there for them. Adding on secrets like these to your traditional levels can help a lot with making it more interesting. It just expands on the content within a level, and I personally like to try and go for these secrets whenever I play levels, so it's always very appreciated. Okay, so now for my thoughts on the power-up overall, and, well, it's actually pretty complicated. I love how they implemented it here, and like I said, it's the perfect power-up for parkour levels. I love the propeller mushroom, don't get me wrong, but they took away the ability it had in Mario Wii where you could wall jump after using its twirl, which made it super fun to use. I really like using the Super Acorn in Mario Maker 2, so why am I so conflicted? Well, my most wanted item for the game ever since Mario Maker 1 has always been the Ice Flower. This is one of Mario's best power-ups in my opinion in pretty much every aspect. I would have loved to have seen that power-up finally get added into Mario Maker 2. However, we got another flight power-up instead. Now with that said though, I still can't really be too upset. The way the Super Acorn works is just phenomenal and really fun. While I would have preferred the Ice Flower any day, I guess I can't be too sad that they decided to add this in since it's pretty fun. Plus they could have added a much worse power-up like the Mini Mushroom, so I'm just gonna be happy with what we got for now. But anyway, we've put it off for long enough, so now I think it's about time to dive into the Super Mario Bros. 2 Mushroom. This gives Mario his look from, well, Super Mario Bros. 2 and allows him to do pretty much everything he was able to do in that game. He has three main abilities. The first is the high jump. After holding down for a few seconds, Mario will begin to flash. Upon jumping, he'll jump higher than he would normally. Mario can jump up 4 blocks while standing still and 5 while running, whereas this high jump allows him to go up to 6 blocks, much like the Super Acorn's twirl we mentioned before. In fact, while we're at it, I might as well go ahead and mention that I think the best use for this mechanic is also hiding secrets in levels. If the player is able to keep this power up for long enough, then maybe they could be rewarded with a big coin or whatever else you feel like would be an appropriate reward. The second ability for this power up is being able to ride on top of enemies. Normally, Mario would just jump off of them. With this mushroom though, he isn't actually able to defeat enemies in this way, with the exception of some bosses. He can't ride on everything though, in fact he can only ride on stuff normal Mario is able to jump on. The only exceptions are the bosses and wigglers, which he'll just interact with normally for some reason. That means enemies like Pokies for example aren't able to be ridden by Mario. Now the third and biggest ability of this mushroom is it allowing Mario to pick up items and throw them. That's how he'll be defeating most things in this state, as throwing them will usually kill. The Super Mario Bros. Style is the only one where he can't normally carry stuff, so this is also pretty useful. He's able to pick up anything he's able to ride on that I mentioned before. Enemies like Koopas, Buzzy Beetles, Bob-ombs, and Mecha Koopas won't be defeated when picked up and thrown, but will instead be put into their normal states if Mario were to hit them when thrown. So for the Koopas and Buzzy Beetles, that's their shells, for bombs that's being activated, and for Mecha Koopas it's just being stunned. Bullet Bills and Bonsai Bills will begin flying again in the direction you sent them in upon being thrown. You're able to use the enemies that you throw in order to kill other enemies. In fact, for some, it's required that they hit something else in order to be killed. You're also able to pick up a few other things like sideways springs, POWs, clouds even though they get destroyed, snowballs from the ground on the snow levels, and even Chain Chomp posts, which will make the Chain Chomp fight on your side if it's still attached. Well, that was a lot, so let's go ahead and jump into our first idea. Wait, you guys don't get why that's a pun yet. So for this first one, I'm going to be showing off a pretty popular machine for this. In the nighttime ground theme, the Super Mario Bros. 2 mushrooms will jump whenever Mario does. This is extremely helpful for making jump detectors. In fact, it's pretty much the best method of doing so. I will say I'm not the first person to come up with a design like this, but it's too helpful to not include into this video. This design here is by Paul Lloyd on YouTube, so make sure to check out his channel in the description or on the card on screen when you have the chance, since he makes a lot of other Mario Maker 2 videos as well. Anyways, let's quickly go through how to make this design, as there are quite a lot of different parts. First, start off with a 2-block long steep slope and place a hard block directly underneath the top tile so that this space here doesn't get filled in. Below the hard block, make 2 small L's with ground blocks. Then have 2 more ground blocks underneath the other end of the slope. Place a note block here with a Buzzy Beetle attached to it. Underneath the first L, place an on-off switch, and from there place 2 one-ways facing each other like this. Place a 3-block long blue platform under the Buzzy Beetle and have a double speed conveyor facing towards the left be put on top of the second L. Place a curved track with a skull coaster on it so that the skull coaster peeks in here a little bit. Then have a claw with a sideways spring in it near the end of the track. Finally, place a semi-solid inside of the note block, and then nearby place the Super Mario Bros. 2 mushroom, and encase a contraption with ground blocks. Now that it's built, we can see whenever Mario jumps, the on-off switch is flipped. This can be used for don't jump levels, or levels where platforms switch whenever you jump. This is definitely one of the more interesting nighttime gimmicks, so I'm very happy to see it be added here. Again, big shoutouts to Paul Lloyd for the design. Also, this only works if Mario is coming from the left, so you may need to flip this design if you want Mario to come from the right. I'm not sure why it's like this, but it is, so make sure to flip the design if Mario is coming in from the other side. Alright, onto one using the power-up itself. Mario has entered a ghost house and his exit is blocked off by some hard blocks. Lucky for him though, there's a spike ball to destroy them. Sadly, it's going in the complete wrong direction. Fortunately, Mario notices a pile of springs which he can carry due to his power-up. Placing them in the holes that the spike ball would normally get trapped in and keeping one to turn the spike ball around allows Mario to actually make his escape. This is a very simple showcase of how Mario picking up items could be used in a level. Sideways springs or chain chomp posts can work here for ground. While in this scenario I have Mario building a path for something, I could maybe have him need to build a path for himself with a tower in order to reach a higher spot. Maybe he could even use the springs in a boss fight to knock, say, Bowser into a pit of lava. There's a lot of applications for carrying items, and it could lead to a ton of unique ideas. You could even have secrets where if a player carries a spring from the start of a level, they could reach a normally unreachable part of it. Giving Mario the ability to carry things, but also having it only attached to a power-up is super interesting, and it's fun to see what people come up with while using it. Well, I think it's pretty obvious that I like this a lot for pretty similar reasons to the Master Sword. It's very unique, it opens up a ton of new possibilities, so yeah, I'm pretty happy it was added. But now we have our final power-up, the Boomerang Flower. This one is pretty self-explanatory. Mario gets to throw a boomerang that will go for a short distance before returning to him. These boomerangs have a ton of uses, so let's go ahead and run through them. The main one is of course defeating enemies. It's able to kill Goombas, small ant troopers, bloopers, Cheep Cheeps, Spikes, Skip Squeaks, Sting Bees, Piranha Plants, Piranha Creepers, Hammer Bros, Hop Chops, Dry Bones, Fish Bones, Match Koopas, Pokies, and Porka Puffers. These are able to hit Koopas and Spinies into their shells, along with activating bombs and damaging bosses. Like Link's arrows, boomerangs are able to collect things like coins, big coins, pink coins, and keys. To me though, one of the most interesting things is about how it interacts with other objects. Like fireballs, are able to travel through clear pipes, however unlike fireballs, it's also able to activate P-switches, POWs, question mark blocks, exclamation mark blocks, on-off switches, and break bricks. All of this leads to an item that can be used in a ton of unique and complex ways, which I really love. Like the Super Acorn, it also works super well in traditional levels as it's basically just a different type of fire flower. Lucky for me though, coming up with ideas for this power-up was pretty easy since I actually already made a level based on this a while ago, so I have quite a few ideas, so let's go ahead and jump into them. First off is one that works well for traditional levels, secrets. I have two main examples here. First off is simply having a big coin hidden behind some bricks that can only be broken if a player has a boomerang to throw at them. This is a pretty simple one, but a nice way to hide a secret and is a good way to reward players who manage to keep the item. Another way you could do this is by having a big coin out of reach for the player, but not out of reach for a boomerang. This is again another pretty simple one, but there really is no issue with that. As I said before, rewards go a long way into adding onto a level's content, especially traditional ones. If you have a boomerang flower in your level, then just try throwing in some secrets like this every once in a while. Alright, now into the more complex ideas. I won't go through everything from my level, but I will cover the ones I found the most interesting or fun. First off, Mario enters into another room, but seemingly has nowhere to go. That is until he sees some bonsai bills he can jump off of. Once he gets to these ledges, he finds himself stuck once again. However, there are exclamation mark blocks at the top that appear to be helpful. Upon hitting it with the boomerang though, they just appear to get blocked off. Mario seems to be stuck here for good, however when he tries throwing a boomerang at the bonsai bill, it becomes an explosion allowing Mario to leave. This uses an interesting mechanic where Mario will cause bullet bills and bonsai bills to actually explode when hit with the boomerang rather than actually being defeated normally. Using this, we're obviously able to fully extend these blocks, as an explosion will always fully extend exclamation mark blocks. In order to showcase this mechanic to the players, I also decided to have a super obvious secret in the ground. So if they try hitting the bonsai bill with the boomerang, they'll see that it acts like an explosion to give them some coins. You could use this in another way, where maybe if you bring a bonsai bill backwards, you can destroy some hard blocks from a previous section. Either way, this explosion is a really interesting mechanic, which is why I thought I should show it off. Mario is now dropped onto some donut platforms onto a bunch of quickly flickering on-off blocks. He sees that his only escape is by collecting the 4 pink coins and entering these locked warp blocks. It's very challenging to do this, but with his boomerang to destroy bricks and collect the far-off coins, he's able to make it through. This just simply uses the boomerang's collecting and destroying functionality. The fact you can only have out one at a time helps improve this room by making it more difficult in my opinion. The main thing here that may need explanation is the switcher. Since Mario enters the room underneath this spiny, it will activate, causing it to bounce between the on-off blocks. I decided to start Mario on donut platforms here in order to let him have some time to understand what's happening in the room. If the player just spawned on top of the on-off blocks, then that could lead to some unfair deaths, as the player would not have enough time to react to the on-off blocks changing. To me, this room was very fun and intense, so I'll always enjoy it whenever I go back and play this level. Okay, and the final idea for this video is a nice and simple platforming section with the boomerangs. Mario has to first jump and throw the boomerang at just the right time in order to hit this on-off switch and not fall. Then he uses it to clear a path through the fire piranha plants. Afterwards, he finds himself faced with another hard-to-reach on-off switch, this time requiring him to wall jump before throwing the boomerang onto the switch. Then you're supposed to fall down and hit this one with a boomerang in order to land on these blocks, but don't tell anyone, you can kinda just long jump like this. Gonna go with my bout on that one, but anyways, after that you have to do a turnaround boomerang toss so you could throw it behind you and land on the spot in front of you. The final jump is simply throwing it back and then jumping to the end. I wanted to show this off as I thought it was a good representation of all the different ways you can incorporate boomerangs into platforming. Obviously this could be made way harder, but I found this was a good difficulty that provided a decent challenge but wasn't all too difficult. Platforming sections like these are also perfect places to hide those secrets I mentioned before. As always with stuff like this, it's important to have a lot of indicators so that the player isn't confused as to what to do. Generally, in platforming sections, you want the challenge to be executing your moves rather than figuring out what you're supposed to do. Like I said, the boomerang works very well in tight platforming sections like this, so building a level around them could be quite fun. Since I made a whole level around the item, I'm sure it's pretty obvious that I love this power-up a lot. There's no other power-up from 3D World that I'd rather have been added, since this provides the most unique gameplay from the selection there. The only one that I might have considered over the boomerang was the double cherry, however I think the Boomerang Flower just works better with the items in Mario Maker 2. So in the end, I'm pretty happy with the selection of power-ups. I'd say the Master Sword, SMB2 Mushroom, and Boomerang Flower are all amazing additions. The Super Acorn is also pretty good, though I still kind of wanted the Ice Flower. The Pea Balloon is solid, but a bit of a niche one, and then there's the Frog Suit. I hate you. Anyways, that's it for this super long video. I've been putting this one off for a while since I anticipated it'd be a long one, and as you can see, I was definitely right. There were just so many cool things that could be done with these power-ups due to many of them being more complex than the other ones in the base game. But which DLC power-up is your favorite and which do you wish they added? Let me know in the comments. If you enjoyed this video, please make sure to leave a like and subscribe for more on Mario Maker 2 and anything else Nintendo Switch. Links to my Twitter, Discord, and Paul Lloyd's YouTube channel are all in the description. I apologize for me struggling to keep up with one video a week lately, but I hope that I'll be able to get back to it. Anyways, I'll see you guys next time. Bye.